I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Tess Rinearson and Christopher Goes of Interchain and the Cosmos Network. Welcome, both of you, to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you
Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Let's kick it off with Chris. If you could just start with a little bit of background on what your team has recently released with Stargate and how that relates to the Cosmos Network.
Yeah, so the Stargate upgrade brings the Cosmos Network through the next warp portal to its new destination, including both some large feature additions and just continual improvements to the whole stack. Flagship features for Stargate include the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol version 1, which will allow Cosmos chains to talk to each other and to send tokens, to transfer data, to send non-fungibles, any kind of interaction you could imagine, like between smart contracts on Ethereum on a single chain, can also be performed between chains in the Cosmos network using IBC. Stargate also brings a bunch of encoding improvements, particularly the addition of protobuf support to the Cosmos SDK, which is the core software development kit part of our stack. And in the Tendermint side, it brings a bunch of performance improvements to evidence handling and security, and notably state sync, which will allow new nodes, once they join the blockchain, to sync up really quickly.
Wow, well, that's definitely a lot of updates for the network. So that is a huge milestone for your team. So congrats on the launch. And now, Tess, Cosmos actually has quite the intricacy inside of the blockchain, and it actually has a lot of functionality, but a lot of our viewers aren't as familiar with the network as they are with Ethereum and some of these other networks. Can you just give a little bit more background on the Cosmos network and what makes it unique among the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say from a technical perspective, there really are two foundational novel technologies that sort of make the Cosmos network able to do the distinctive and unique things that it does. And one of those things is its consensus algorithm. It uses a consensus algorithm called Tendermint. Tendermint is one of the oldest proof of stake algorithms. It's one of the most trusted. It's been in production longer than I think any other proof of stake algorithm. And that's really neat because it lets networks come to consensus very quickly and in a much cheaper way than using something like proof of work. So that's one kind of cornerstone of the technology. The other is IBC, which Chris mentioned. It's this inter-blockchain communication protocol, and it's what lets different blockchains send messages back and forth, basically. And so it allows for things like atomic swaps to happen. And the kind of funny thing about these two things being the cornerstones of Cosmos's novel tech stack is that Chris is the team lead for IBC and I'm the team lead for Tendermint Core. So you have representation from kind of both of these aspects right here today.
That's great, Tess. And yeah, I actually didn't know that about being one of the oldest and most secure proof of stake consensus. I know Tendermint's been in the works for quite a while, and now to have this IBC inter-blockchain protocol live with Stargate is the next step. I've been hearing about this blockchain interoperability, getting all the blockchains to work together. Right now, the majority of the DeFi seems to be on Ethereum, but now Polkadot and Cosmos and these other blockchains, and it will grow faster if they're all working together. So maybe, Chris, you could dive into the IBC update a little bit, and what does this mean for Cosmos? How big of a role is this playing in the growth of Cosmos as you continue to grow this year?
Sure thing. So IBC brings to life the last phase as outlined in the original Cosmos white paper. The original Cosmos white paper talked about Tendermint consensus, of course. It talked about the Cosmos SDK and the proof of stake system, and it talked about the interchain layer, inter-blockchain communication layer, IBC. So the version of IBC which we're deploying along with Stargate realizes that original vision, which means that all of these blockchains which speak the Cosmos stack, or so to speak, which use Tendermint, many of which use the Cosmos SDK, and many of which will use IBC, they can all talk to each other, even though they're separate sovereign chains with their own consensus algorithms, often their own staking tokens, their own custom logic for whatever kinds of applications they're focusing on enabling. They can agree on an interface boundary at the IBC layer and use that to communicate. So for the particular case of decentralized finance applications, that means that just like different DeFi contracts on Ethereum live in different sets of smart contracts and interface with each other through ERC standards for non-fungible token transfer or for price oracles. Different Cosmos chains can focus on different financial or other kinds of applications and agree at the interface boundary over IBC on how to transmit specific kinds of data or control messages, such as price information or token transfer information, information on how to settle collateral for a stablecoin, anything like that can be handled over IBC.
Wow. Well, the possibilities seem limitless, and with this is just version 1. I know you're going to continue to work on it, and you're working on it on Interchain Gmbh. Can you talk about, is this a separate entity or something that's specifically dedicated for growing IBC, and what are the goals and advantages of working inside Interchain?
Yeah, so actually I can take that one. Basically, Interchain Gmbh was founded at the beginning of 2020, and it's really meant to be this home for open source development for the Cosmos ecosystem. So the Tendermint core team works there, the IBC team works there, and there's other pieces of the Cosmos ecosystem that are also sort of housed within Interchain Gmbh. GmbH, by the way, is the German abbreviation like Inc. or LLC. It's just like the company suffix because we are based in Berlin. And so yeah, that's really the mission of it. We're very, very focused. One of the special things about Cosmos is this like truly decentralized, very sovereign nature of all of these blockchains. And so, I think our development strategy actually really mirrors that as well, where you'll have different teams at different companies, in different countries working on all these different pieces. And we actually all work, I would say, quite closely together and quite well together. So, a few pieces are housed in Interchain Gmbh, but we have lots of other collaborators in the ecosystem.
That's great to hear that everyone's collaborating, and the size of the space is just so small and compared to what it will become, that if you're working together, it's just going to make it that much easier to grow. And now with the release of V1 IBC, there's Ethereum and these other blockchains, Polkadot, and some of them that are handling a lot of the DeFi transactions and the load of the DeFi industry right now. And it seems like they are pushing past their limits. There's been the scalability issues with Ethereum discussion for a long time now. And you mentioned they're using the ERC20 standards and NFT standards, and a lot of transactions are sort of backlogging the network. So what does this mean for Ethereum and Polkadot and these other DeFi ecosystems now that IBC is coming into place?
We view the role of the Cosmos ecosystem and IBC within DeFi as broadly synergistic with existing chains. We're trying to grow the pie. We're not trying to take their slice. The DeFi ecosystem, interesting as it is a tiny subset of the global financial market. And by and large, we're focused on making it a more compelling alternative to surveillance capitalism rather than competing with existing chains. We want to, in fact, synergize with existing chains. So specifically in the case of Ethereum and IBC, the ERC20, for example, token standard, which is used on Ethereum, can be transferred or will be able to be transferred to Cosmos over a token bridge called PEGI, which is being worked on within the ecosystem. And then tokens, which were originally issued and can continue to be issued on Ethereum, will be able to be transferred to Cosmos and used in DeFi applications somewhere in the Cosmos ecosystem and transferred back to Ethereum. You could really even consider, if the Cosmos ecosystem is everything which speaks IBC, Ethereum can be part of the Cosmos system. It's inclusive, not exclusive.
Very cool.
In particular, I want to emphasize the sort of unique advantage of Cosmos within the context of DeFi, which is customizable security. So if you are a DeFi project on Ethereum, you get Ethereum security, whether you need it or not. You get the exact same security and you have to pay for it. So your users have to pay gas fees, or you have to subsidize their gas fees for Ethereum's consensus. In Cosmos, you have much more control, whether you're using your own sovereign chain, whether you're perhaps using the kind of cross-chain validation that we're working on developing. You have configurability over exactly what kind of security your DeFi application needs, and it can change over time. Maybe you start out with a prototype and you end up with something that has a lot of users and you need to scale your security over time. We're interested in making that possible. And we think that will enable a bunch of applications that maybe currently don't make sense.
Very interesting. And you mentioned having a sovereign chain. working within the Cosmos network. At the beginning, in part of the release of Stargate, you mentioned making it easier for developer access and for people to help run and verify sync nodes, launch nodes on Cosmos. Can you just go back to that and touch on how easy is it for anybody to start helping verify the Cosmos network and start building on top of it?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So one of the major changes that came out with this new Stargate release is a much faster way for full nodes to sync to the network. So previously, if you wanted to start a new node on a pre-existing network like the Cosmos network, but really for any Tendermint-based chain or any Cosmos SDK-based chain, these are building blocks that anyone can use to run their own chains, right? So if you wanted to start a new node and have it join this pre-existing network, that could take days to sync, right? Because you're starting from the beginning and you're replaying every block. But one of the features that we added in this latest release of Tendermint Core is called state sync. And so it lets you sync just the application state at the latest point, rather than going through and replaying block history and like recalculating application state all the way along. So that's absolutely a game changer for people who want to run full nodes on these networks. In terms of like building applications and things like that on Cosmos or with Cosmos, I mentioned the Cosmos SDK, and the vision of the Cosmos SDK is really to be like Rails, like as in Ruby on Rails, but for blockchains. And so this idea is that it's this framework where you can there's lots of great tooling in there that you can kind of mix and match and decide what kind of blockchain you want. I do want to acknowledge that like building blockchain applications is way harder than building traditional web applications for so many reasons. Like there's, this whole immutable history thing, which makes it really hard to correct mistakes that you might have made. There's lots of aspects like that. The decentralization piece, of course, also adds a lot of complexity. But I think the Cosmos SDK does a pretty good job. It's written in Go, which is relatively accessible for these kinds of things. And so, I think in general, Cosmos is meant to be a very accessible ecosystem for people. And we're excited that, we're shipping features that continue to be true to that vision and those values.
Definitely, Tess. That's great. And now having all the SDKs, libraries, and everything to help developers make it easier for them to start developing is obviously going to be a huge step forward for growing the network. Are there other incentives or things that would really pull people away, either to start working on Cosmos from other blockchains or just not being involved in blockchain at all and deciding that Cosmos is the network that we want to start building on?
Right, I could take this. I mean, we are, I would say in general, or I think we ought to be. There's the we is a royal we. There is no central command point of coordination within the Cosmos ecosystem. Tess and I represent Interchain Gmbh, which is one of the more central entities, but there's no key. But I think it makes sense to focus much more on attracting developers from outside the blockchain ecosystem rather than competing with other projects for tiny slivers of specialized talent. In that vein, we are really interested at Cosmos enabling lots of different incentive models for zones. So we're interested in providing the framework that people can use to figure out what makes sense for their application and figure out how to route value capture from the users of their application who are deriving utility from it back to development in their own fashion. So we're interested in reducing a bunch of the flat costs by providing these platforms upon which they can develop blockchains, Tendermint, the Cosmos SDK, and IBC, and increasing the leverage they can Cosmos ecosystem through having active deployed blockchains which speak IBC, which already understand the protocols, which have active assets that the users can transfer to their new applications. This is roughly comparable to how different APIs on the web enable new web applications really gain rapid adoption. Like you could publish an app to the App Store and people can start to use it. They can transfer it in their, obviously some companies want to close these APIs because they don't want their network effects to be captured. But for the ones who are open, they can start transferring in their history and start, communicating with all their own friends, for example. So we're interested in making that as open as possible so that the potential value that people developing new zones can offer to users is really high.
definitely good for the ecosystem. And I think that there may be a rush of new development throughout 2021 in all of these networks, including Cosmos. So we are running short on time for the interview, but I want to talk about the next steps. Now that Stargate's launched, an incredible update for Cosmos. What are the next steps for both of you and your teams throughout the first half of 2021?
Yeah, so I can speak to the Tendermint side of that. On the consensus front, we're really focused on stability and performance, and bringing the software to a 1.0 release, where people have been using it in production, and it actually secures a few $1 billion in value, but we have never marked it as 1.0. And so our next step is to cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and finally say we have a 1.0 product. So that's what's next on the Tendermint core side.
Very cool.
On the IBC front, we've honestly been in our cave for the past 18 months designing this protocol and implementing it. This is IBC 1.0, and we want to see it live and see what people do with it before we make huge commitments to next steps. So part of what we'll be doing over the next few months is really focused on watching IBC be deployed in the market, seeing how people use it, seeing how they use different parts of the IBC software tool chain, like the core protocol, application modules, relayers, different zones, how those interact, and let that experience inform our next steps. That said, we already have plans for a 1.1 of the protocol, which will bring some new features, and we're also interested in working on particular application modules that will be open source, just like different ERC standards are. So like there's a standard set of ERC 721 reference contracts that developers of some kind of application involving NFTs can import and utilize. We're interested in building similar kinds of common resources, but of course in this case utilizing IBC.
Well, big plans for 2021. All the best with Interchain and with Tendermint and Cosmos. What if there are developers or just anybody who's really interested in learning more about the whole network, getting involved with the communities, what's the best way for them to get involved?
So I would say for the Cosmos network, there's cosmos.network is the website, and that's definitely the place to go. If you're interested in our work at Interchain Gmbh specifically, we have an extraordinarily ugly website at interchain.berlin. Like I said, we're very focused on back-end core blockchain development. We don't yet have any front-end engineers, and it's obvious, but we're hanging in there. So that's where I would recommend people go.
Great. Well, I will leave those links in the description box below for the viewers. Tess and Chris, all the best with the project in 2021. Thanks for your time, and let's follow up in the near future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.